Hi everybody, I'm Melinda Gallant and I want to welcome you to another edition of Cape Conversations. I am excited today to be talking to two lovely women about a serious subject, although we do have a couple of laughs. So come along, let's have another Cape Conversations. Hi everybody. Oh, I am so excited to have with me, at this time of year in particular, two wonderful women doing wonderful works, helping people that are kind of down in the dumps and maybe dealing with a lot of loss or grief or sadness. And you would never know it by talking to them because they are such upbeat, happy people, but they're really doing a lot of good. And I am with Sue Andersen. Yay, Sue, welcome.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Kathleen Shine O'Brien.
Shine O'Brien.
Shine
so
O'Brien.
Nice
I should be able to remember that, right? Shine O'Brien. So, you guys have started something very unique, correct?
We have.
Yes, we have.
All right. So you're a yoga master, right?
I'm a yoga teacher, yes.
You're a yoga teacher.
Yes.
Okay, can I call you a master?
You could.
Sure. This is the master of yoga. And Kathleen, you're a therapist.
I am. I am a licensed mental health counselor.
Excellent, excellent. So talk to me, Susan, first about yoga and what you do and what is all this called? I guess maybe we should start there.
Okay. So I call this moving your grief. That's sort of my name for it.
Sure.
But you would find other YouTube videos or books about how yoga helps with grief. Mm-hmm. And I found myself, just in my own personal experience over the last 10 years, that yoga really helped me when I was grieving. But there was a little bit missing there in terms of you're in a space with a lot of people, but there's no connection in terms of what you're going through.
Right.
The yoga movements themselves are very helpful, and the breathing and the meditation. Right. But having that connection is what was sort of missing. So I a few years ago kind of changed my focus to work with people and offer classes and workshops specifically for people that were grieving, so they would be able to, have that connection with one another.
So you do Hatha yoga, right? And yin yoga?
I do Hatha yoga.
Hatha
yes,
yoga.
Which is
would help if I knew how to say it.
Which is really the foundational yoga poses.
Right.
There's many different types of yoga. A lot of them use these same poses. This is more of a gentle kind of a yoga, and there's also different movements that you wouldn't really see in a traditional yoga class if you went to a studio. They're more focused on releasing anger, releasing negative energy, that sort of thing.
Right. Oh, anger. That's a whole nother show. So, Kathleen, how did you get involved with this woman?
So Sue and I have known each other for a number of years through both Sharing Kindness, which is a nonprofit on the Cape that works with the community around suicide prevention, education and grief work, and also through the Samaritans on Cape Cod and the islands. And one of the things that we had come to understand specifically around grief is that we know that emotions live in our bodies. And so Sue has this gift of having people tap into where their grief might literally be in their bodies. Is it in their bellies? Is it sitting in their chest? Sure. What does it feel like? And so what those movements do is exactly as Sue described. It allows the release of particularly some of those negative emotions, which we consider things like anger to be a negative emotion, but then it allows space to fill it with something that's more hopeful or joyful. The piece that we realized that was missing was exactly what Sue was describing in terms of the lack of one-on-one. So our new model, which we think we've nearly invented, and if
so
we
this
haven't,
is like new to you and to
It's new to the community. It's new to us.
Okay.
So in the idea of moving our grief, what we also wanted to do is allow our participants to journal what they were feeling.
Oh.
And so as a result, we came up with this beautifully, masterfully unchoreographed sort of partnership. Nice. And Sue leads the movements, and I lead the journaling with a prompt. But what we're also able to do then is allow our participants to really talk about their grief.
I see.
And it provides an opportunity to really debunk some of the myths around grief and grieving. We do a really lousy job with grief in our culture. We want to rush in and we want to make people feel better.
Right.
And we find it really painful to bear witness and sit with someone's grief.
Oh, yeah.
And so what we found through these workshops is we're allowing people to not only feel their feelings, but we're holding space for them to do so without expectation, without judgment, in a very kind and loving way.
So how does this work? Okay, so I mean, there's different kinds of grief, right?
Absolutely.
You can lose a spouse. That's one kind of grief. You could lose a sibling. That's another kind of grief. A parent, whatever. You could lose a pet.
Yes.
That's that. And okay, so everybody out there knows I grew up on a farm in Ohio, right? A dairy farm. And we had dogs and cats and chickens, and we ate our chickens, and don't name the cows because you might be eating them, which I did do that for a calf, and that was a big mistake. And everybody said to me, oh my gosh, that's almost like cruel and unusual punishment. No, this is the way it works. It's a business, you know?
Right.
So how do you guys approach all these different kinds? Is it all the same?
I don't think it's all the same. I think each person's grief is unique, and each time you're in that space where somebody dies or there's a loss, there's a different kind of grief there, right? So we're not saying your person that died, because you could just be grieving over the loss of your home.
Oh, see, I never thought of that.
You know, all the stuff that's gone on during the pandemic.
Right.
Your loss of normal life, your loss of your job.
Right.
And
Community.
Yeah,
the loss of community and the loss of being able to be relational. We're wired to be relational beings.
Right.
And the pandemic has negated that ability for us. And so there's a tremendous amount of grief that's existing because of that.
Right, so we know who's attending because they register, and we may ask.
Is this online or is it in person?
I've done it online, just the movement part of it, the yoga part of it. But these workshops that we're doing right now, they're in person. Just because we haven't moved to that model yet.
So do you do yoga first and then go to the journaling? No. Okay.
No, it's
very much synergistic.
Okay, so tell me. Okay,
so we'll lay it out for you. So we start off, and when you come into the room, we've already organized the space in a circle, and people choose wherever they feel comfortable to sit. And we introduce ourselves, and then we start with a welcoming circle, and part of that is just inviting people to breathe a little bit and quiet the noise in their head and be part of mind, body, spirit. And then we ask them, if they choose, to say the name of their loved one or to name their loss, and then we light a candle. Oh. And we keep that in the center of our group. Sue then goes into her first part, which starts more meditative.
It's meditation and breathing. And
none of us breathe right, by the way, unless you've been an actor, which done theater. Well, if you've done theater, you know how to breathe.
You know how to breathe.
Yeah.
Well, and I remember one time that the first time that I just did the yoga for grief part of it, one woman, 85 years old, said, I didn't even know I could breathe this deeply.
Isn't that funny?
I've never done that before.
Yeah.
But it felt very good to her.
Yeah.
You know. So we go through this opening meditation, breathing exercise, and then I turn it back over to Kathleen, who does her first prompt.
So I might say, when you think about your loss or you think about your grief, is there a particular emotion that comes up for you?
Sure.
And then write about it, or draw about it, or scribble about it, or don't do anything and just sit with it.
Right.
And we create some time for that to happen, and then we call
Are
it.
people like halting about that? Resident?
No.
Not a bit.
Resistant? That's what I was going for.
Not a bit.
Yeah.
And sometimes what we find, because we've created this opportunity, is that, and I encourage people to just write in a stream of conscious way.
Wow.
Don't edit, don't think about it, just this is only for you. Write. And it is amazing what comes up.
Oh, sure.
And then we invite people, we call it Challenge by Choice, and we invite people to share, if they choose, what's come up for them. And then as we kind of look around the room, we'll notice that there's a lot of heads nodding.
Yeah.
And so we can make these connections. So you might say, it's anger. And I might say, do you know what it is that you're angry about? And maybe you'll say, parents shouldn't have to bury their children. That's dying out of order.
Right.
And I will see heads nodding.
Yeah.
And so we talk about that kind of loss. We talk about how difficult it is. We also get this incredible opportunity to do some psychoeducation. So we had a mom who lost her son say to us, I'm angry because I have to wear a mask at the holidays. I have to put on a smile and I have to pretend. And we kind of looked at each other and we said, no, you don't.
No, yeah.
You don't.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity for you to be honest with your grief, and for others to bear witness, and also for those in your family to really learn about it.
Sure.
And especially for other children and grandchildren to learn that we can hold these two opposing things, that we can have joy and we can have sadness. We can have deep loss and we can have gratitude.
Well, and you can have remembrances too.
Yes.
Along with
Absolutely.
that.
Right.
And say their names.
Yeah.
Or talk for other kinds of loss.
Right.
Talk about that job loss. Talk about moving. Talk about your adult kids moving to other parts of the country. This is your first holiday as true empty nesters. And to not make a hierarchy of what's worse. This is your experience and you feel it as you do.
I see. So then after they do a little bit of writing, then they go back to doing a little bit of yoga.
So, right. So then I would invite people to tune into their body and investigate where they feel this emotion.
I see.
And then we spend some time there, bring your hands to that space, breathe into the space, and we do some different
Oh, great.
movement, just gentle movements while you're seated, exercises to kind of get that energy moving and opening up that space. But just identifying where you feel it is really important, because you might not know that, you're carrying that in your hip or you're carrying that in your shoulder. You might just think, oh, it's my, I'm just tense or something, but really it's your grief.
And when you were talking about are people resistant, you know what they're really resistant to? They're resistant because they think that they have to come in with a knowledge of yoga and movement. And that is absolutely not true.
Oh, I know that she's very easy to work with because I took beginning yoga with her and she was so nice to me. Oh, you are nice.
So
but
nice.
you're especially nice to me. Don't burst my bubble that you were only nice to me. She was very nice and certainly easy and very, you explained things very well so that I understood exactly what I was supposed to be doing.
So our participants that are resistant or feel like, oh my gosh, I've come into the wrong place. I didn't know it was like this.
Yeah.
I thought it was a grief support group. I didn't know we'd be moving. And the feedback that we've received has been overwhelmingly positive.
Oh, sure.
But also, it's empowered people. We have a couple of groupies, and it's empowered people to be able to step outside their comfort zone, even in the throes of deep grief, and be able to say, yeah, I need to take care of myself, and this is a really nice way to do it.
Oh, that's great. So do you have repeat, how many times do they come back, or can they come back as many times as they want?
As many times as they want.
Right. So we've been doing, especially in the fall, we've done this once a month. And then our goal is to continue and kind of focus this offering. Right now, it's just, as I mentioned, it's just one session a month. But we have an opportunity through Sharing Kindness to offer these sessions to particular organizations.
I see.
And for those people that belong to that organization or that group to be in a 5-week program.
I see.
Where we'll go a little bit deeper into all of these. But the goal is to continue to do this on a monthly basis.
And it's free.
And it's free.
I was just going to ask that question, because that's the first thing I can't afford it, or you know.
So,
First of all, why people can't afford to spend money on themselves, to do things for themselves, I don't understand. Although a long time ago,
it feels selfish.
But yeah, you do. I guess you do. Especially if you have kids, you think, well, no, I should be spending this on the kids, or saving it for their college, or blah blah blah. So it's free.
It's free, and we're very grateful for generous donors, and we're very grateful for people to offer their space at very affordable rates, because Sharing Kindness doesn't have a home yet. But that's another conversation, because we will.
So I have a question, though. I don't understand what Sharing Kindness is. I've never heard of it until this moment. So explain it to me.
I'm happy to do that.
All right.
Sharing Kindness is a
Free feel to chime in, too, if you want
shall.
to. Okay.
I shall.
Sharing Kindness is a nonprofit that was started by Dr. Kim Mead Walters and her husband Davis Walters following the suicide death of their youngest son, Jeremy. And
on the Cape?
On
or
the
somewhere?
Cape.
Okay.
On the Cape. The Walters live in Orleans. And Kim has been a family doctor for 30 years on the Cape. And what she and Davis quickly came to realize is that we are very, very limited in grief services, grief offerings, Cape-wide.
Right.
And so they started Sharing Kindness as a means to include the community and Jeremy's friends in a way that would allow them to identify their grief, but also initially to really bring suicide prevention awareness and education to the community. And so we started with a Cape and Island suicide awareness walk.
Okay.
And we thought maybe 50 people would show up. And we had hundreds of people.
Oh, that's wonderful.
We also had people who said, I've held a secret for a really long time. My father or my mother or my grandmother or my wife or my child died by suicide, but we said it was something else. So part of what we've also tried to do is reduce the stigma around mental illness. We call it brain health. And also to talk about suicide and to talk about what prevention really looks like from school age on up.
Sure.
Right. And I think now the goal of the organization is actually to find a space, right? So, Mid-Cape ideally, that is a grief and wellness center.
Sure.
So not specifically.
You'd have to get a grant for that or something large, right?
Or a very generous donor who says, this speaks to my heart, and I have a house.
Oh,
or,
I was thinking commercial space.
Or it could be. I mean, it could be lots of things.
Yeah.
And so the adjunct to this is, a few summers ago, I was invited to train with the Dougie Center, which is the nation's oldest and largest bereavement center for families. And so ideally what our goal will be is to provide services for families who are grieving, and that would be after school and evenings, but during the day we would be able to have groups for elders. We would be able to have our grief movement and journaling workshops so that we can really look at what our community needs and know that everybody has experienced grief. It's not just because of a death. But we don't talk about it.
No, that's true. That's very well. We're Americans. We don't throw ourselves on the casket. Well, there are people that do, but very few and far between.
Right.
I'm the youngest of 5 kids, so I've already had both parents and 2 sisters pass away. The 2 oldest sisters have now passed away. And there's a big age difference between me and everybody else. So, it's people don't think about that. Your family order makes a difference.
Makes a huge difference.
And again, I grew up on a farm, so I kind of had it in the back of my head, you are the very, very youngest. Unless you get hit by a truck.
The other point that you started to raise in terms of different kinds of grief, so there's also a grieving process called anticipatory grief. And that's if someone has a terminal illness.
Oh, yeah.
And so we anticipate the end of their life, and we anticipate what that's going to feel like.
Right.
And very often people don't know that there's a name for it. So they think, what is wrong with me? My person is still here. Well, there's nothing wrong with you.
No, but you know,
You're
in your head, you know. Right.
That's right.
Right.
And so when we're able to identify what's happening, or there's a woman that's divorced and her ex-spouse died and she's grieving, and people will say, but you divorced him.
Yeah.
You didn't love him anymore. And she'll say, but he was my children's
You have history.
father.
Yeah.
We've got history.
Yeah.
And so there's disenfranchised grief.
Sure.
So it gets layers and layers and very complicated, and part of it is we create space for courageous conversations about all of this.
Well, so Susan, at this time of year, which is, I mean, this is, everybody talks about this, and then you hear people talking about it, and then you hear that, well, there are things going on, but I never really kind of paid any attention. But at this time of year, it's the toughest time of year for lots and lots and lots of people.
Absolutely.
Because of the financial strain. We aren't even going to talk about having COVID still out there.
Right.
And it's probably going to be out there for our lifetime. For the rest of my life, for sure. And how do you deal with that when they come to you? Do you think about that at all? Just the time do you see the classes, more people wanting to do this, or do you see less people because they just go, I can't,
Well, it's kind of a mix. It's
Really?
interesting because, the first class that we offered in October, we thought, oh gosh, people are going to be anticipating the holidays and thinking about what am I going to do, and maybe they're feeling pressure, and we didn't get a good response. And then in November, we had a full house.
And now we have a waiting list.
And now, so I think the more people read about it, so, we do a lot of social posting, of course, get things out on any platform that's available. But I think, what I've talked to different people about this, sometimes life gets in the way. Like, you need it, right?
Oh my goodness.
You need it. Like one woman who has been trying to come to this workshop has had, one time she was sick, one time something happened, she had to do something with her children. Life gets in the way. And she's like, I need this.
Right.
But you can't,
And she's almost apologizing why she hasn't shown up.
Exactly.
It's okay, right? You have to tell her that.
Yeah. So I think, the idea of trying to offer this at different times, different places on the Cape, yes, online, maybe a little bit more, just gives people the opportunity that maybe I can't do it this week or this month, but it looks like I can do it next time. And getting that word out constantly, so people aren't afraid, or they don't want to do something like that, or they're not sure. It's just like another thing that you can join.
Right.
Because we don't want it to be another thing you feel like you have to do.
Right.
We want it to be something that you want to do. And what we've found is it's sort of this miraculous universe intervention, but the people who come in the month that they come, those are the people that are supposed to be there then.
Yeah. Sure. So this has only then been in existence for 8 weeks?
This model, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, this model. So I have been doing the grief movement or grief yoga classes for a couple of years. I did online during COVID.
Do you train for that, or is it something you developed?
So I did a grief movement course with a gentleman by the name of Paul Andersen, who is a nationally known or internationally known person that focuses on grief yoga. And then from that training, I developed my own sequence, or my own class of what I was going to do. And what I found was missing, I kind of noticed this myself, was this piece of the journaling and allowing a little bit of conversation, which I did incorporate into some of my classes, but also felt like that's not where I'm skilled.
Right.
Having that kind of a conversation.
So did you already know Kathleen?
Yes. So,
oh my gosh, talk about fortuitous.
So we had been talking about this. She'd actually attended one of my grief classes.
Oh, wow.
And so we had been talking about it, kind of noodling different ideas. And came up with this and
Wow.
said, okay, let's try it, see how it will work. And what's really nice is I think both of us, because we're attuned to the audience, the participants, we can kind of just change it on the fly. So it's not really scripted. If we see people that really need more movement, then we're going to do more movement. If they really want to talk, then we're going to let them talk.
I see. Well,
Yeah.
that's great. So can this model be used other places, or is it already being used other places?
Honestly, I don't know of other places it's being used. I'm sure there's other, sometimes therapists, like in this training that I did, this grief movement training, there was also therapists that took this training. So a therapist might do that with a group, but maybe just start out with some kind of movement.
Right.
A yoga teacher, same thing. Like when I was starting, a yoga teacher might say, let's write down our thoughts at the beginning of class, but you're going to go to your skill set, right? You're going to go what you're comfortable with. I have not heard of any,
I have not.
of any two people like
This might
ourselves.
be a wonderful model, though, for other.
Well, and what we've found is 2022 is going to be a really big and exciting year for us doing this work and for Sharing Kindness. Sharing Kindness received a grant from the Cape Cod Healthcare Foundation. And so it's allowing us to take this to 3 different already established organizations. Helping Our Women, which is HOW, and the Alzheimer Family Support Group, and Grandparents Raising Grandchildren. So we're going to be able to do this in a 5-week session, and we'll be working with caregivers, we'll be working with people with chronic illness, and grandparents that are raising their grandchildren because of the opioid epidemic, because their children either are unable to parent, they're incarcerated, or they're deceased. So by allowing us to sort of work together in partnership with these existing organizations is exactly what our goal is, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
But we also want to bring what people need to them in a way that they know that their groups need it. So we're in these conversations, and it's happening starting in February.
Okay, so if I want to give, I have $1 million and I want to give it to
Thank you.
Sharing Kindness. I wish I did. How would I get it to you? Was there a
SharingKindness.org.
SharingKindness.org?
We have a wonderful website. We have a great social media presence, thanks to Lannon O'Brien. That was a shameless plug.
Yes, it was. She's very smart, but she's a delightful person too.
So yes, SharingKindness.org. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook.
Wonderful. And you, Missy?
Sue Andersen Yoga.
Sue Andersen Yoga.
.com.
.com.
I also have a YouTube channel, so I have different short videos related to grief, also just general yoga.
Wonderful.
Things that would be helpful.
Excellent. I want to thank you for being here. It went fast.
Thank you.
My gosh, it went fast.
I know it did. So,
Yeah.
Kathleen Shine O'Brien and Susan Andersen, thank you so much for being on Cape Conversations.
Thank you.
And you know what? We all need to think about these things, you know? And we don't need to hold it inside. We can let it out. We really can.
And it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. Megan Devine says it's okay to not be okay.
That's right. It's absolutely right. You know, nobody's perfect. And well, there was one person, but they crucified him, so what are you going to do, right? Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, Susan Andersen and Kathleen Shine O'Brien, 2 wonderful women doing great works with their organizations, yoga and grief journaling. Amazing. And you know, we all have a tough time sometimes around the holidays, so reach out to someone you know and talk to them. It's all okay. So I want to thank you for joining me today on another Cape Conversations, and I'll see you next time on Cape Conversations.